Hello.
Hey, there you are.
Hello. How are you guys?
Doing well. How are you, Jim?
Doing great. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Good. I'm giving people a couple of seconds here to hop on only because we just finished our monthly office meeting and they have to get off of one Zoom and get on to another. So
Isn't this crazy times?
that's for sure.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
you've
while
got a lot
people
of
are,
exciting things going your way.
things are going well, you know what? We're having a bang up record year. We were just talking about that during our office meeting. So we're thrilled.
Well, congratulations on your success.
Yep. Very good. How are things in Texas?
Well, I'm actually in Branson, Missouri right now. I don't know if you can see the screen behind me, but I'm in one of our cabins up in Branson right now. I purchased another log cabin I'm closing on in the morning. So we
Nice.
came up here. Linda's flying up this afternoon.
Very good. Very good.
So we're doing that, and then we bought a couple other properties, and so we've been pretty busy.
Well, you know, Jim, I'm going to, as I introduce you here to everybody, I remember when you did this class for us about 8 years ago or so here in Columbus, and it really resonated with me. A lot of what you said has stuck in the back of my mind. And I am so excited that you have taken the time out of your busy schedule to be able to share today with our agents your story, where you and Linda came from and as you got into investing and where it's taken you and so forth. So without further ado, Jimmy is married to Linda McKissack. I know a lot of you've met or been in Linda's classes, and we don't see Jimmy as often sometimes as we see Linda. So we feel so privileged to have you today, Jimmy.
Thank you.
So I'm going to let you just take it away.
Okay. Well, y'all are going to get a version of Jimmy Unplugged today. I'm in beautiful Branson, Missouri, in one of our nightly rental cabins, and we're closing on another one in the morning, and we're finishing up on another house that we bought about 2 months ago to put it on the nightly rental market. So we're staying real busy in the nightly rental stuff right now. So today I'm going to really kind of set up a format for you, and I'm going to start out by kind of giving you mine and Linda's story of how we got started in investing. And then we're going to all explore together a lesson on money. We're going to teach you a little bit of how the wealthy think about money, and they may think about it a little differently than you and I do. I know at one point in my career, that one point, the way that the wealthy thought versus the way I thought by all the books I read and everything, really resonated with me, and it really got us on a path to building wealth. And then I'm going to give you guys our criteria, what Linda and I use whenever we're actually buying residential rental properties, and the strategies that we use out there in the marketplace. And then if we have time, we're going to discuss a little bit about the nightly rental business and how nightly rentals work. They're kind of a hot item right now out in the marketplace. And then I'm going to open it up for some questions. Does that sound okay with you guys? All right.
Sounds perfect.
Okay, great. Well, Linda and I, she got into real estate in 1985. And I was in the restaurant and nightclub business at the time. And whenever I was a senior in college, like 10 hours to graduate, my dad was kind of in that business in Dallas, Texas. And I would work on the weekends at his clubs and places and bartend for him and stuff. And anyway, I went to school 30 miles north of Dallas in a place called Denton, Texas. And Denton didn't have any nightclubs. It was a dry area. You had to have private clubs if you had anything. And it had one little small podunk club. And, we're a pretty big college town. And so anyway, I had this brilliant idea my senior year to open up a nightclub up in Denton. So I had to learn a whole lot about trying to do that and do a private club and stuff. So I opened it up, and the club was just an immediate success overnight. It did really, really well. And I had money kind of coming in from all over the places from it. Did really, really well. So I dropped out of college with 10 hours left to graduate, built this place. And so as soon as I got it off the ground, I built another one. And then I got it off the ground, and I built another one, and I had 3 of them. And then about 1988, 89, I had the brilliant idea of going to Dallas and selling the clubs I had up in Denton that were doing well and opened up a place in Dallas. How many of you guys are kind of familiar with Dave and Buster's? It was kind of like that type of an operation with food and with billiards and video games and all that kind of stuff, except for on a little bit of smaller version. Well, it took all the money I made from selling all my clubs in Denton and took all the money I could borrow to go to Dallas and to go do this. And so to make a long story short, I went down there and after I built it from the ground up and spent, almost a couple $1 million on it. And before you knew it, after about a year of operating it, it just wasn't going to make it. It wasn't going to make the debt service. It wasn't going to, it wasn't doing what nearly wanted to do. The next thing I knew, we were kind of broke. And so I ended up selling that business at a big, big, big loss to a guy that had other nightclub interest in Dallas. And by 1989, Linda and I were broke and $600,000 in debt. And so at that time in Texas, had a big downturn in the oil and gas industry. Savings and loans were crashing. Banks would come in and they would work with you if you had any money to go pay them. Well, for me, I spent about a year after going broke there trying to figure out what I was going to do. By 1990, Linda had become pretty successful in real estate. Her business was doing really well. And, and I was looking for something to do. I was only qualified to go out and manage a restaurant and manage a nightclub. And when you're $600,000 in debt and that only pays $500 a week, you're a long way from, getting that debt paid off, or you end up having to file bankruptcy. And the least thing I wanted to do is file bankruptcy. So anyway, Linda got an invitation from one of her title companies to go out to a seminar out in Palm Springs by a real estate teacher that was out there by the name of Mike Ferry. And her girlfriend was supposed to go, and they were signed up for it about 4 months in advance. Well, her girlfriend in the meantime ended up getting out of real estate and getting a real job. And so by default, Linda invited me to go out to the Palm Springs, to the desert, to go to the seminar with her. I thought I was going out there to go drink margaritas out by the pool and go hang out and her go to the seminar. But anyway, I walk into the seminar and there's 3,000 real estate agents there. And there are a bunch of signs that said 100 plus, 150 plus, 50 plus. I didn't even know what they were plussing at the time. They were talking about number of transactions. And they had a panel of real estate agents up on the panel. One of them was a guy by the name of Tony DeCello, who ends up being one of my very, very dear and best friends. He was on the panel and he was from Boulder, Colorado, and he was talking about his real estate practice. And the last year it had made $600,000. Well, $600,000 was kind of my magic number. I needed some way to come up with a way to go do this. And so to make a long story short, Linda and I, we came back together and we formed a team. I went to work, and the hardest thing for me doing this was I was working for my wife. And for you guys that know Linda really well, she didn't spend a whole lot of time to turn around and teach anything. That girl's moving, shaking and baking and making things happen. And so I had to just kind of grab onto her coattail and learn from her along the way. But it ended up working out very well. And she ended up doing the listing side of the business. I ended up doing the buyer side of the business. And Linda and I had two assistants that worked with us. One of them handled marketing and listing side. And the other one was a closing coordinator and kind of an office manager. And so that stage really set everything in place for all the success that Linda and I have had from this point forward. Was really built on the money that we were able to make by being real estate agents. So when Linda and I tell you every day that we wake up thinking like a real estate agent, that's exactly what we do. Even though we own offices, we own regions, we own, over 80 something residential rental properties that are annual rentals, 25 nightly rentals, 8 office buildings. Every day we get up with our realtor head on. And that was the one thing that really catapulted us. and gave us enough cash flow to really get started in investing. So in 1992, we were working our way out of debt with the banks. We still owed quite a bit of money to the banks, but we really started reading books and stuff like Millionaire Next Door, Think and Grow Rich, Richest Man in Babylon, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, all these books about money and about wealth. And when we got through reading those and really studying them, we kind of looked at ourselves and said, what are we doing in that arena? Have we set any goals in place? We were always really good about goal setting for our real estate sales business, but were we really building any goals or anything around us building wealth? In our industry, there's not really a retirement plan. So if you don't go out and create your own retirement plan and build that retirement plan for you, there's not going to be one. And so we sat down one day and we really worked on a strategy and a goal for us. And at that time in 1992, I'm going to tell you, my vision was such that by the time, and I was almost 40 years old by this time. And so, our timeline was shorter. We had really good cash flow coming from our real estate sales business. And this was pre-Keller Williams days too, guys. We didn't have profit sharing. We didn't join Keller Williams till 1993. And so this was pre-Keller Williams time. And so our goal, when we sat down, we wanted, by the time that I was 60 years old, so it gave us 20 years, so to speak. By the time I was 20 years old, we wanted to have $250,000 coming to us passively, through our real estate income and stuff. And so that was the first number that we actually put out there that we really wanted. So we started with that at that time was our freedom number. And that was going to be our retirement income. And we were going to have that by the time I was 60 and be able to mosey off into the sunset and do anything else we chose to want to do. And so we figured out in order to do that, so we worked the number backwards, put out 250,000 and said, what would we have to do to be able to have $250,000 a year coming into us by the time I was 60 years old? And so what we came up with the formula was we needed to own 20 residential rentals. We needed to finance them on a 15-year note. We needed to put anywhere between 20 and 30% down cash on those properties. They needed to cash flow on a 15-year note. And by the time then we would give ourselves 5 years to go buy those 20 houses and finance them on a 15-year note. When they're paid for and they're free and clear, they would generate through the rents after expenses about $1,000 a month each on each property. And that would give us our $250,000 in cash flow, and we could live our life happily ever after. And that's really how the story got going. After that, when we got into the process, we really started hitting it hard and stuff. And I learned some really good lessons at that time. Linda and I, what I found out about us or learned about us through reading the books and looking at the way we lived, we had really poor money habits. Our money habits stuck. If we made a lot of money, and I'd made a lot of money in the past in the nightclub, a lot of cash flow, but I had zero wealth. And so we knew that if we got money into our hands and stuff, somehow we were highly inflicted with this disease called we call it the disappearing money disease, the DMMs. And this money, if it reached our greedy little hands, somehow the money went poof. I don't know if any of you guys are afflicted with that type of situation, but every time we got money in our hands, it didn't go somewhere to buy an asset or anything. It just got consumed and totally spent. So one of the things that we learned on the front end is we had to figure out a way for us to get money and to put money in a certain place automatically. And that's the key word in that, is automatically. And then when the funds got there, we would go buy the property. So the good news about this whole thing, number one, it got Linda and I really laser focused on our real estate sales team. We had a fine-tuned machine. The most money, we had years that Linda and I generated over $1 million in GCI together in real estate sales. but the most money we netted out of our real estate sales team was somewhere between $350,000 and $375,000 after tax dollars that came in through our real estate sales. And that model was me working buyers, Linda working sellers, and 2 administrative assistants. That was when we made the most money. And now when we grew our team bigger and we bought back our life and time, so to speak, we still, even grossing over $1 million in GCI, we didn't net as much as we netted when Linda and I were doing it. And at that time, our GCI was about $650,000 a year. And so anyway, the reason I said that is Linda and I learned that we needed to put money away automatically. And so what we did is we took 15% of every commission check that crossed the table. In Texas, you closed your real estate deals at title companies. So you would instruct the title companies, and they took 15% off the top of every commission check and had it automatically deposited into a money market account. Now, every time that money market account would get 25 to 35 or $40,000 built up in it, and you wouldn't believe how fast that happened. You know, we would go out and we would buy a residential rental property based on our formula. Remember, they had to find, because of my age, if I was young like some of you guys on this call and stuff, I probably would have financed them on a 30-year note and got a larger cash flow coming out of the property. But because of my age and because of our criteria of wanting to have that $250,000 come in by the time I was 60, we set it all of ours up on 15-year notes. So if everybody kind of gets that, but the whole key to that whole discussion is the automatic and being able to take the money off the top. Now, a lot of real estate trainers and teachers and stuff will teach you, that money's very linear. That means it just goes down in a straight line. You have income, you have expenses, you hopefully have a profit, you pay taxes on that profit, and hopefully you have a disposable income down at the bottom that you use to go invest somewhere. The problem with that model is most of the time, by the time the people get down after the tax and to the bottom, is number one, they either have no money left, they've already consumed the money because they don't budget themselves well and they don't set up budgets well. And by the time they get down to the bottom, they have zero money left to invest. And so by taking the money off of the top, that's the key thing that you guys need to hear right now. If you've ever read the book, Profit First, you need to really take that book and reread it again and figure out what Mike's talking about on Profit First. Because if you'll take the money off the top and make such of a have to in your lifestyle to go buy assets to create that passive stream of income for someday in your life that you don't either choose to not want to sell real estate anymore or not have to sell real estate anymore, that's the strategy that works. If you wait till the bottom line to go grab your money at the bottom, the odds are you'll never do this. And I know hundreds, thousands of realtors out there that I've taught over the years, and by using that strategy, very few of them have been successful in doing it. And so let's talk a little bit about money. Can you guys, can y'all see me right now? Can you see this piece of paper? I'd like you to, each one of y'all take out a piece of paper right now. And I want you to put just a line down the center of the paper and a line across the paper like this. Okay. This was the changing point for Linda and I whenever we really got our why is to investing in real estate. And so you're going to have 4 boxes on that piece of paper, right? And in the left-hand top box, I want you to put an E. And the E stands for employee. This model came out of Robert Kiyosaki's book, Cash Flow Quadrant. And it's the best business money book I've ever read. And then at the top of the E on that left side of the quadrant, and left side's the side with the E, right below the E, I want you to put an S for the bottom left quadrant. And at the top, I want you to write the word earned on that left-hand side, right above your E. On the right side, I want you to put in the top right quadrant a B. And above the B, on the right-hand side, I want you to put passive. And then in the bottom right-hand side, I want you to put the letter I. Now, what those four quadrants in cash flow quadrant, this is what Robert Kiyosaki said, and it was like a light bulb blowing up in my brain. I mean, it was, he said, E for employee, S for self-employed, B for businesses, and I for investors, investments. And so whenever he was explaining that in his book, he said, number one, I want to give you some good news. He said, you can become a millionaire in either in any of these quadrants, whether you're an employee, whether you're self-employed, whether you own businesses, or whether you own assets. He said, any of those quadrants you can become a millionaire in. He said, but let me tell you one thing. He said, when you read all the books and you study all the different people around the world, and you really look at the difference between the wealthy people and either the poor or the middle class people, he said, what you're going to find is 95% of the population lives and dies on the left-hand quadrant under E and S. Now, us being real estate agents, where do you think what's our quadrant? What would you say is our quadrant?
Business.
Self-employed.
We
I'd
are
probably say self-employed. That's pretty much because, you know, we run our own businesses. We're not really paid a salary by anybody. And so we run underneath that self-employed. Now, you hear a lot of real estate agents talk about their business and stuff. Now, in his book, when you move from being self-employed to a business person at the top B, he distinguishes this way. He said, B is people making you money, and I is assets making you money. And he also explains in the book, building wealth, guys, is not that complicated. It's really pretty simple. There's only three ways to do it. You're either going to do it through buying stock in the stock market. You're going to do it through owning real estate and real estate assets, or you're going to do it through owning businesses. So we got businesses that you could own, we got stocks, and we got real estate. So that's the only three ways to build wealth. And then I read another article at the same time. We were really engulfing ourselves in the early 90s and stuff, reading all these books. And I heard from a very wise man named Warren Buffett. And Warren said, invest in what you know, what you understand, and what you can somewhat control. And so when I looked at those three ways between owning businesses, which I'd done before, and I'd been successful to a point, and then I made some critical errors and lost everything. And then I got into real estate, and so I'm in the real estate business. I have a license. I'm listing and selling real estate. I'm doing the real estate deal. And the last one was stocks, and I knew very little about stocks. And I saw a lot of people coming out of the dot-com crisis in the 2000s and stuff, even that, you know, where companies went completely belly up. They lost all their money in the stock market, and there was just a lot of negativity about me, and I didn't have the desire to spend the time, effort, and energy to learn stocks real well. So when we look at those three, real estate was really the easy choice for Linda and I. And so on our first, and you know, again, I'm going to take you back to the early 90s when we bought our first property. Linda went on a listing appointment that day. And Linda came back to the office and she was all fired up. Now, I'm gonna tell you guys, whenever I'm teaching the large groups and stuff out there, and I ask the question, what is the number one reason? What is your mooring line? What's holding you back from doing this? Lots of times I hear, well, I don't have any money. My credit is blemished at best. Um, I've never saved money. I don't know how to save money. Um, Everything always gets spent, and I've lived that life. I really totally understand that. But anyway, Linda went by and went on a listing appointment. She comes back to the office and she's all fired up. And she goes, hey, the seller that I went on this listing appointment, he doesn't really want to list the house. He wants me to find an investor to buy the house. And he's told me if I wanted to buy it, I could buy it. And I said, well, what's the deal on it? And she goes, well, this was blah, 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 blah. She said, I think we could flip the house and I think we could make $15,000 on it after we fixed it up. And I said, well, that's great and dandy, Linda, but you realize how much money we don't have in the savings account? You realize we're paying money back trying to get this bank paid off? You realize we don't have any cash? And do you think a bank's going to really loan us any money right now? Our credit's not exactly, stellar at this point. Do you think the bank's going to loan us any money? And she goes, you're probably right. And I said, well, I hate to poop on your post toasties, but it's probably not for us right now. And so she goes to bed at night. And so she wakes up the next morning. She goes, Jimmy, what about Lou? And I go, what about Lou? You talking about Lou Kraft? She goes, yeah. And he's a builder that Linda had worked for about 3 years. He just assaulted the earth, a great guy. And she said, if we threw our commission into this deal and we could get Lou to do the construction on the fix-up part, I wonder if he would go to the bank and we would just split the profits on this deal with Lou. And I know it's going to make 15 grand. And I said, sounds like a great idea if we can get Lou to do it. So she called Lou the next morning and he was all excited. And so I'm saying it for all the reasons that you have of why you're not going to do this. We had every reason at the time to not do it. And we were broke, had no money, built a plan, realized we had a need, like the cash flow quadrant talked about, because when we looked at 100% of our income for Linda and I was on the earned income side, what Linda and I could go out and produce. On the passive side, we had no businesses throwing off real money other than our sales job. And we had no investments at the time other than the house we lived in, which was owner finance, and we owed a bucket load on it. So we had zero money coming off the passive side. And so getting into that deal with Lou, he said, yes, for sure, I'll do it with you, Linda. And we went and bought the house and everything. And it was just like Linda said. She put it together. We paid Lou to do the rehab. We threw our commission into the deal. Linda sold the deal, made a commission back on it. And after everything was done, we made $15,000 on that. And then another property came up from the Resolution Trust, which was the foreclosure department for the savings and loans. And it was a big 3,000 square foot wooden house that hadn't had the electricity on. It was in the historical district of Denton. And it came on the market that day for $15,000. As soon as it came up, I saw it, and Linda said, hey, this is something y'all look at. So I got Lou, our builder, and he and I went over and looked at it. Lou says, I could convert this into a fourplex for about $60,000. And I said, well, that's great and dandy, but we're going to have to go get a loan. So we used the $15,000 to pay cash for the house, put the house up as collateral with the bank, and went and got a loan to do the rehab on the house. And it was our first fourplex. Linda and I still own that property today, and it generates about $3,000 a month in income. It's been paid for about, 12 or 14 years, maybe 15. And so, getting into it with a partner or whatever you have to do was better than not jumping into it at all. And so anyway, we got that going and really moved forward with that. And moving up to date now, Linda and I, as far as we have very little earned income coming in right now from what Linda and I go actually do anymore. Most of our income right now is generated through people that make us money, through the B side of owning businesses, and the investment side on our investments making us money. And so that number, the $250,000 goal that we had many years ago, has got a lot bigger. And you're going to find once you get on this investment journey and you get started and you start networking with these investors and different people, your number is going to change too. But starting out with a freedom number is the most important thing you can do. And everything starts in your mind with what you guys really need. And then it needs to go down into a written plan. And so that plan that we put in place was to own the 20 properties and pay them off in 15 years, work our butts off in real estate and generate enough cash flow, take the money off the top to go put the money down on these properties. We used local banks to acquire these. In the beginning, we did a few loans that at that time you could only do 3 Fannie Mae investment type properties where you got them a fixed rate for, on a 15-year note or a 30-year note even. At that time, you could only get 3. Now they've expanded that. You can get 10. We got those 10, and then we started using really local community banks, everything to do our financing. When like I said, it all started really coming down to really having a very good plan in place and then really focusing on real estate sales and getting going. Once we really started moving along, we started putting up a lot of properties in the 2000s, I guess 2005 and 6. I started realizing there were a lot of homes that were being foreclosed on. And I didn't have a clue on how to buy homes or anything with that foreclosure process. So I started doing some studying, started reading some books, and then in Texas, they foreclose on their properties on the first Tuesday of every month. And I started going to that foreclosure sale. I went for 90 days and played like I was buying homes using the foreclosure process. I found out who the players were, who the people were just looky-loos that were out there, and I figured out the process if it took cash to go do that. So I went back to my banker and I said, look, at this time we had about 40 properties or so. And I asked my banker, I said, how can I get a line of credit to go out there and pay cash for these homes, to buy at the foreclosure sale? And he says, well, you've got plenty of equity in your properties. And so anyway, he took the equities on our properties and I got a $500,000 line of credit with the bank. I went and took that $500,000. I started buying homes in 2006, 7, 8, and bought them all the way up to 10. And those homes have been fantastic homes. We upgraded our whole portfolio. We were buying really nice homes. And one of our strategies on the front end on buying homes is we wanted to buy homes in nice enough areas so that whenever we decided if we chose to want to dispose of some of our properties, we could retail them to retail buyers. If you buy all junk properties or all older properties that are in not so good areas, typically whenever you decide to sell those, you have to sell them to another investor, which means you have to discount the sales price. So our strategy was buying nicer, newer homes and stuff so that if we wanted to sell them, we could just sell them to a retail buyer and maximize our investment by getting the most money for them at that time. And so today, we've moved everything forward. Like I said, we're at about 80 something property. One time we had 105 properties. We had a lot of iffy properties that were good properties, but they required a lot of maintenance. A lot of them weren't brick and they weren't stucco, and they were frame properties or siding properties, and there were a lot of maintenance issues with those properties. And we learned over the years that those really weren't really good whole properties. They were better to to sell and maximize the cash out of those properties and buy other ones. And so we really kind of restaged our portfolio midstream also. And then we had the opportunity to get into the nightly rental business up here in Branson. I'm in one of our log cabins right now that we own. And back about, I guess it was 2010, 12, we had the opportunity to buy a log cabin up in Branson, Missouri, and we bought it and kind of fell in love with the area. After I got up here, I realized that the owner of this whole subdivision where these cabins are located actually went into bankruptcy. Someone had bought some of the assets out of the bankruptcy, but there were 3 lots that were left in here, and these lots typically sold for $60,000 a lot. And I went back, negotiated directly with the bank, and bought all 3 of the lots for $100 grand. And we built 3 log homes on those properties. Moving forward, we're at about 26 properties up here right now. I've bought 6 properties up here since January. And the key in the nightly rental business is kind of a hot business, but it's not an easy business, guys. The nightly rental business is a very hands-on business. It's very labor intensive. I mean, and he who controls the management on the nightly rental business really makes the money. And so in the nightly rental business, you know, we're with the annual rentals, like a 12-month rental and stuff, typically on the management fees, you're going to pay anywhere between 7 and 10% a month of whatever the rent is. In the nightly rental business, you're going to pay on the lowest end, maybe 15%, and on the high end as high as 40. And so the nightly rental business is just a very, very labor intensive business. And so it took us to build up to an economy of scale. We had to get about 20 properties up here before we could actually create our own management company. So at that point, once we got to 20, we created our own management company. We've had our management company working now for about 4 years up here. I just bought 12 more lots to build 12 more cabins up here that just got developed. And so we're hoping to move our strategy now. The cash flow on these, when you control the management and you can get, you know, good revenues on your rentals, and they can be, lots of times when you go into a nightly rental situation, especially into a resort area, you're going to find that those properties are very seasonal. They work good during the summer months, or they may, if you're in a ski area, you know, they work great in the winter months. And so you got to figure out something. You got to figure out what's your number for doing your pro forma. Up here in Branson, Missouri, you have about 9 months of good rentals and 3 months of pretty weak rentals. And so you have to base all your performance on your rents and stuff on a 9-month performance. And so it's a different business, but it's a business we've really enjoyed, and we kind of fell in love with the area, and it's really starting to pay some really good revenues and stuff. It does better than the annual rentals, but yet it's a lot more labor intensive and a lot more issues going with it. So do you guys can open up for some questions? Dala, do you want to kind of lead that?
Sure. So based on what you guys have heard today, what's one of your biggest questions? Maybe how to get started?
I have a question. I'm sorry, I'm eating my lunch. I've done about 12 flips, and I've been focusing on doing flips instead of buy and hold investment because I'm worried about buying a property and then losing rental income and having that problem to deal with. So my question basically is, how long did it take you to go from your first rental to your second rental? And how long did it take you to get from your first rental to a point in your investment career where you were no longer worried about vacancy?
Okay, you know, I'm going to tell you, I've bought homes in every market from 1992 to present. And there's some markets that are better than other markets to buy property in. But in 1992, when we first broke into this buying investment properties, we bought 3 properties our first year. And, you know, to be honest with you, we had enough cash flow and enough income coming in from our real estate sales that I wasn't awfully concerned about the vacancies on the properties. And I've never had a vacancy problem, even with over 100 single family homes, and even the downturns that we've had in the market over the years and stuff. We've never had that issue. And the secret to our formula really is that the day we take ownership of a property, we're at least a 70-30 loan to value ratio in our property. So what I mean by that is I'm either buying that house at 10% below market, and I'm putting 20% cash into the deal, which would put me at a 70% LTV, or I'm buying it at 5% below market and I'm putting 25% down on it. Whatever it is, I'm trying to at least be at a 70% LTV, excuse me, by the time that I take ownership of it. That's made me kind of inflation proof over time. And so, I mean, with our debt service we had on those, and I didn't really depend on the income from our investments. I really depended on the income from our real estate sales. And remember, when you're flipping homes, it's a lot riskier to go. I've lost money flipping houses. I've never lost money holding houses. God, that's a big statement right there.
That
I've
is.
never lost money holding homes and building wealth. I have lost money flipping houses. Now, flipping houses is no different than listing and selling houses to me. Whenever you go out and you list the person's house, and depending on whatever your commission structure is, whether it's 5, 6, or 7, really that seller is saying, I'm giving you 7% or 6% or 5%, whatever your commission of this property entrusted to you for you to go sell this property for me. And then however that commission structure gets broke out, but it's the same thing. And I'm creating cash flow when I'm listing and selling houses. It's the same as when I'm flipping houses. If I make $20,000 or $30,000 on a flip, to me, it's just like listing a house and selling it for somebody else, except for it's a lot more work because I've got to go in there and rehab it, fix it up, and I've got to take the risk of, you know, especially if you do some older flips and stuff like that, you get into them and there's always surprises and, you know, just different things that come up. Each one of the flips that you do, none of them are cookie cutter. Every one of them's a different deal out there. And so some you do well on and some you may not do so well on. But, you know, I look at flipping houses as cash flow. Building wealth is holding an asset long-term, getting that asset paid for and letting that asset pay you money. You can do all the flips in the world, but if you go blow the money and you don't put the money away somewhere to where it's going into an asset that's going to a passive stream of income towards you, you know, it really doesn't do a whole lot of good. Got that? I mean, you might as well go out and list a bunch of houses and have a lot less risk by going out listing the houses than take the risk to go out there and make, you know, 20 grand or so on the flip.
Jimmy,
This is what I've looked at, and I've done, you know, I've owned over 300 houses and I've kept 80 right now. And so I've done a lot of flips over the years and stuff. And flips are really good if you earmark your money for what are you going to do with the money that you're going to generate from it. If it doesn't just get consumed. You know, like I said, on the cash flow quadrant, the 4 quadrants I gave you, the litmus test for me was, and the thing that really was my aha moment with that when I said, you know, if I quit producing today, if my income, so if something happened to me and I couldn't work, or something happened and I just totally didn't want to do this anymore, and I walked away from this, how am I going to sustain my life? Where's the money going to come from? And I looked at that left side and the right side, and 100% of my money came from me producing. I had no money coming from businesses, people making me money, or assets making me money. And so, you know, whenever I studied the wealthy people, 95% of their income came from the right-hand column of assets and businesses, and 5% of their money came from them being the production kings, going in there and producing that to make it. And so in real estate, we got to figure out what is our long-term plan. Again, wealth building is three things. It's stocks, it's real estate, it's businesses. And then if you're with Keller Williams, it can be profit sharing. You know, profit sharing brings Linda and I over $1 million a year in net income. When you look at all the businesses in the world, guys, that's the one with the highest rate of return. That's the one with the least amount of effort. I don't have to go change any toilets. I don't have to go change any hot water heaters. I don't have to do anything but pay taxes on that money and do whatever I want with it. It's by far the best business. And Linda and I started really looking at profit sharing as a business in 1997 and focused on profit sharing as a business. And, you know, we were able to bring a lot of people to Keller Williams. And that's been great for us.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm an investor myself, and I work with a lot of investors. And I guess I want to ask a question just to reconfirm what I'm doing. I'm still buying in this market, and
Good
so
for
I guess
you.
the question is there a right time to start for all the agents? When is a good time to start? Is that the right time is now?
I think the right time is any time. I think even if you had to go in there today, and today's prices are pretty high. I mean, Linda and I always called it the dastardly D's, that you're looking for people that are willing to trade time for money. You know what I mean? I mean, it could be divorce, it could be drugs, it could be, you know, anything that causes something in somebody's life that they need to do something quick, and they need to do something, you know, fast on their property. We send out postcards into areas and stuff, you know, and it's the typical deal that we buy homes for cash. We're kind of like the iBuyer program in our city. You know, we've got a relationship set up with our bank such that we can buy property and close on them quickly in our area. We mass mail. Every other month, we send out about 4,000 postcards that says we buy homes, we pay cash, we're a local investor. If we can help you through any of these processes, or you'd like to just get an idea of the value of your home, please call or email. And so we send out that card to over 4,000 people. My brother, Brad, he actually does that for us through his mailing service with the McKissack group up in Denton, Texas. We target various areas and stuff. And Brad will either buy homes to either flip or buy homes to hold, or he'll pick it up as a listing. If he can go out there with the sellers and show them how he can make more money for them and less hassles listing it, he'll list the property. He probably gets, I don't know, 8 to 12 listings a year off of those postcards that come into his team. But I don't think there is a better time to go get started. I've bought in every market, you know, since this year in January, as high as the prices are, and with COVID and stuff, I bought 6 investment properties since January. And so I don't think there's a right time. I think that you're looking for the right deal, and you've just got to put a large enough network out there to people that are out there searching for deals, and you've got to set yourself up financially such that whenever a good deal comes available, you can hop on it immediately and not have to ho-hum around, because these good deals, they go real fast in this market. So you just got to prepare yourself.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe in the beginning of all this, you said that you are in Branson in one of your rentals.
Mm-hmm.
So do you predominantly buy rentals in touristy areas? And also, do you have property managers taking care of them?
Yes, up in Branson. Now, these are nightly vacation rentals up in Branson. Branson, you know, it's a vacation area and stuff. And after I got about 20 units up here, I formed my own management company. and it's saved us a bunch of money. We're managing a few other people's properties also up here with the management company. They, we manage all of our properties, and these are nightly rentals, and so it's a whole different ball game than in Texas. Like in Texas, or where my 85 annual rentals are, and they're located within a 45-minute radius of where I live. And we strategically did it that way so that they could be close. Now, our corporate team, I have a lady that manages all of those that works directly for me. And she's paid a salary and a bonus. And she does everything on the front end of the deal. She signs all the leases. She deals with all the tenant affairs and stuff. And then my accounting department that works for me does all the back end accounting and does the P&Ls on each one of the houses and puts together. I have 85 properties divided over 8 LLCs. So each LLC I have around 7 to 10 properties in each LLC. Does that answer your question somewhat? And so I've done it every way. I've had I've had really good property management companies, and that didn't, I thought were really good on the front end. That didn't work out very well for me. That I ended up firing. Then I created my own property management company where I started managing a whole lot of other people's properties. And I found out I was worse than the ones I fired. I really stunk at that business. And so I just brought everything in really close. And I have just my accounting team and this one lady that manages 85 of my properties there. And then up in Branson, I have a full team. And up in Branson, when you do nightly rental stuff, you have a lot of fingers in the deal because you've got a house cleaning you got to manage. And, we have people that stay 3 days and they leave, and then we've got to do that turn. We have online bookings. And so if y'all want to check out that website up in Branson, it's called Branson Vacation Retreats.com. And that's a website that we set up completely to manage and to run our nightly rentals up in Branson, Missouri. But it's Branson Vacation Retreats.com. And so you can see how we kind of set things up. You can look at the cabins, and then our team up here manages everything. So I have a property manager that works directly for me. She has 2 maintenance guys that work it's called B&R Management. She has 2 maintenance guys that work there. And then we have 4 subcontracting cleaning crews that do the cleaning up here. And so that's what the management team looks like in the nightly rentals. And, it's a crazy business. They get calls 24/7. The remote battery went out, I can't get on the internet, and so it's a labor intensive business. What other questions? Hope that answered you. Good.
So when you were getting started, Jimmy, and you brought a partner into the business, what I know you said it came to Linda kind of in the night. Do you have any suggestions for these guys if maybe they don't have the capital to get started on their own, who they might look to as potential partners?
Yeah, well, I see partnerships done in lots of ways, except like with Linda and I, our goal wasn't to be a partner forever with that deal. Actually, with him, we did the fourplex together that we owned together. He did all the remodel on it. Then we found another property that was similar to that property on the north side of Denton that we paid a little bit more money for, and we were a little bit better financially positioned at the time to go do this. And we bought it with Lou again, and then we decided to split up our partnership. He took one of those properties and we gave him the choice of which one he wanted. And then we took the other property and we split up our partnership. But I think Lou Craft is the salt of the earth, and his family's the salt of the earth. And Linda had experience with him of dealing with him for 3 years. And so we knew that he was a straight shooter and stuff, and we knew that we trusted him. And trust is the whole basis of a partnership, period. if you got somebody that you don't feel like you trust and stuff, then it can be a big problem. And also with partnerships, you need to spell out who's going to do what on the front end. And in any partnership you get into, you need to have an exit plan. So you need to have a way out of that partnership on the front end and stuff. I've seen lots of great partnerships. You know, the guy that I mentioned, Tony DeCello, Tony, I could call Tony on the phone. In fact, one of the properties that we just bought up here in Branson is really close to a golf course that Tiger Woods just designed, and they just opened it about 3 weeks ago. And it's the first course that Tiger Woods has ever designed in the U.S. Johnny Morris, who owns Bass Pro Shops, owns the golf course. And but anyway, I saw a house up there that was in that area close to the new golf course and everything. I think that area is going to be really hot for nightly rentals for golfing type deals. And so anyway, I called Tony on the phone. I said, "Hey, Tony, I got a house up here. It's 330,000. Do you want to do half this deal with me or not? Just let me know what you want to do." Well, it took him about 3 seconds to say, "Heck yeah, I'll do it with you." And so, we put the money in, we paid cash for it. And, but having those kind of partners that, he trusts me and I trust him, and those kind of deals, trust is the whole key to partnership. So if you've got a builder, you've got somebody that's in the business and stuff. And, I've even seen deals where, realtors get paid for their knowledge. And so you've got to go in there. If you're going to go into a partnership, you got to figure out what are you bringing to the table. Like with Linda, and Lou, she found the deal. It was a pretty good economic deal. Lou made money, off the deal from doing the remodeling of the house. Lou made money whenever we sold it. We split the profits on it. And Linda made money whenever we gave up our commission on the front end of the first deal. But when we sold it, we made our commission on the back deal. So we made commission there. Plus we made our profits when we sold it also. And so it's building those win-win relationships together and putting everything out front on the front end. You just got to be careful who you go into business with. And you need to date a while. You need to not just jump into it with somebody. You need to date a while and really see what that person's really like. But partnerships can be great, especially when you don't have money. I'm not sure we would have been able to get into investing at all without Lou Craft. Lou Craft really was the catalyst that got us into it and gave us the fever after that, after we saw we could do it. And then establishing relationships with local bankers. I had a 1-page business plan that had that criteria of trying to own the 20 houses, putting at least 20 to 30% down on the houses. Took that one sheet in there with a banker, and he said, "Jimmy, you and Linda have a great reputation in the marketplace. I know you're kind of short, you're cash poor right now, but if you can do this and based on being able to put this much money down, we would love to do the deals with you guys." I said, "Well, how many would you do?" He says, "As many as you can do." He said, "Don't worry about that. Just go do what you can do." And I said, "Great." And so that's kind of how we got started with the local banks.
There's a group here in Columbus too. It's called REIA, REIA. And there's people that go to that meeting that have money but don't have the knowledge to invest or how to invest or how to find the properties. And I mean, it's like $250 a year to belong to that, but it's a wealth of knowledge and a lot of really good, getting together and doing deals. And they have a meeting almost every day of the week. And I belong to it just because sometimes I offer advice and sometimes, I get into a deal or what have you, but it's a good resource to have. And, the people in there have good reputations.
What's the name, Martha?
It's REIA, and I can't tell you what it stands for.
Real estate.
It's a good program, and you can bring other people that you work with. If you're in an LLC together, you can bring them in. Like my brother and I both were able to join for $300 a year instead of
Real Estate Investor Association, I bet.
Yep,
Yeah.
I bet you that's it. Yeah, that, and any of those investment organizations that you get involved in, the main thing is to get in the flow of what's happening. You know, the money, who's doing the deals, and networking with those people and finding out what they're doing. We used to be, do network clubs and being involved in those things all the time whenever we first got started. In fact, up here in Branson, Missouri, I was teaching um, an investment class for our Flower Mound Keller Williams office. And one of the agents brought this lady in with her. And after the class was over, the lady came up to me and she said, I've really wanted to do this. I really don't care about getting a real estate license, but blah, blah, blah. This is something I really wanted to do and to help build wealth for my family. I said, great. And so about 6 months later, Robert Kiyosaki was coming through Dallas and he called Gary Keller on the phone and asked Gary if he would be interested in coming up to Dallas and teaching a breakout session for Robert's deal. And Gary said, no, but Jimmy McKissack will. And so Robert called me and wanted to know if I said, Robert, I'm sorry, but I've already got a fish. Well, Linda's standing right behind me. She's raising her hands, jumping up and down. I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it. So anyway, Linda went and taught this class investment class for Robert Kiyosaki on a breakout session. And that same lady that I had discussed with in the Flower Mound office 6 months ago, she came up and she said, told Linda that she'd bought several houses already and that she was learning the short sale program at that time, and that she bought 3 or 4 houses and she lived in our area, and found out her son actually went to the same school that my son went to, and they were actually in the same class. And so Linda says, hey, let's get together and become BFFs and meet once a month and we'll discuss our investment criteria. Well, Linda got involved with her and they went and met every month, and the lady kept talking about these cabins that she had up in Branson, Missouri. And so sure enough, she calls up and says, Linda, I've got 2 log cabins short sold up in Branson, Missouri, and we can only afford to buy one of them. Do you and Jimmy want to buy the other one? That's how this got started. Now we're sitting here with 26 log cabins up here in Branson, fixing to build 12 more. And, we'll go up to, probably end up having, 40 or 50 properties up here in Branson, Missouri. But it started out with teaching an investment class, meeting an individual there and buying one cabin up here. And that's kind of how everything works in the investing world. You get into the flow of it and stuff, and good things can happen. Just remember, guys, no one's going to go build. The problem we have in today's society, I think, is we're all kind of addicted to instant gratification. And so if we have the opportunity to do a flip and make $20,000 or $30,000 on a flip property, we jump all over that and everything. But what are you going to do when you're 60, when you're 65, and you either don't have the energy or you don't want to sell anymore? Where's that money going to come from? That's the stuff that haunted me in 1992 at 40 years old, that I didn't know past, other than Linda and I busting our butt earning money today. What would happen if that all went away tomorrow? Where would we live off of it? And so now, we've surpassed our freedom number. We've got, we're pretty much financially free just with the profit sharing alone, guys. I mean, be honest with you, Linda and I could be sitting on the island somewhere. And it's really cool to be able to work because you want to work, not because you have to work. It creates a whole different scenario of why you get up and do things, and the things that you can support, and the money you can give to the ministries, and the different things that are important to you at this time. Thinking like wealthy people think at a lot younger age gives you the opportunity to go do this at some point, and each of us can do it. Linda and I are very, very average people, and if we can go put together a plan like this, so can you guys. And it's really not that hard to do. Building wealth is really pretty simple. There's not a whole lot of ways to do it. And so it was really easy for us to go figure out. We just had to get really good at our real estate sales. And then as we got success there, that success opened doors to other success. And we were willing to walk through those doors to invest in other opportunities. That's it in a nutshell. And you guys can do the same thing.
You touched on the profit share piece, Jimmy. Everybody on this call right now has that same opportunity that you had in the profit
Yep.
share.
Profit share is the most equal opportunity investment that's out there, period.
Can you share some of the strategies that you guys had in networking with people that helped you get there?
Well, let me tell you back, Linda was a super real estate seminar junkie. I mean, she would go to every seminar out there. And we remember, I don't know if some of y'all remember Howard Britton, but Linda and I got interviewed by Howard Britton in 1993. 1993, Howard would interview top agents from around the country, and then he would take a tape at the time of what you were doing and stuff, and he would sell the tapes back out to people. So he interviewed, at that time, Linda and I were doing about 100 transactions a year. And there was another couple that was down in Florida. There was a husband and wife that worked together, and they were doing about 100 transactions a year. And they happened to be the name of Nikki and Gary Ubaldini. And so Nikki and Gary, Howard invited us up to Aspen, Colorado. He interviewed us in his studio and everything. And then we went to an event out there. We gave him, Nikki and Gary became our best friends. And come to find out, Nikki and Gary were the #1 RE/MAX agents in the state of Florida for 10 years. And we were top agents from Texas, from our area. And so anyway, we just developed a really, really close relationship. And so Linda and I, we really worked that Howard Britton network quite a bit. We approached that group. Instead of going in there, we were pretty good at selling houses and listing houses. So going to seminars and learning how to sell a house wasn't nearly as important for us as going to a real estate seminar and getting into relationship with great realtors. And we fully believed in Keller Williams and Gary Keller, and we believed in his vision. We believed in, still today, the mission vision statement of Keller Williams gives me chills. I think it's, it's something that's for real, and we always look at it that way. And we went to seminars with the idea of getting in a relationship with great people. A lot of those great people, like, you don't have to go out and recruit too many Nikki Ubaldinis. You go out and recruit yourself a Nikki Ubaldini, and you just hit the lottery. And so, recruiting some people of that stature, Mary and Joe Harker were Pat Mancuso, Adele DeMoro from up in New Jersey. All those people were people that we recruited that came out of Howard's organization and stuff. And there's many more that I can't even mention right now. But just by changing our strategy of going into getting relationships with great people and then modeling, what it was like to be in business with Keller Williams was a great tool for us. It worked. And we only have 30 people on our top line, or 31 in our first level. And it's just, we have some really powerful people in that first level that we were able to attract. We have over 9,000 each of us in our downline. So really 10% of the company kind of came from Linda and I.
It's pretty
and the people we recruited.
Pretty cool. What other questions do you guys have for Jimmy?
I have a question.
Go
Yes,
ahead.
sir.
In regards to a first-time investor, whether it's a single-family rental, a flip, are you familiar with, or could you share information about equity trust company for the ability to possibly take assets from an IRA? Are you familiar with this?
You can take money out of the IRA to do a real estate investment deal. To be honest with you, there's a really good, it's called IRAlending.com. if you will just go to that website and they will send you out a brochure that kind of explains how to do that. I've never done it and never really needed to do it from my perspective, but I know a lot of people who have, and a lot of people that do it that I know. I started them out by referring them to that website, and it was really valuable information for them to use their IRAs. Now, you got to remember that most of your stockbrokers and stuff don't like you doing that because they don't make commissions on that. And so they're going to discourage you to do it. They're going to tell you how much risk there is in doing it. But, you know, whenever you invest in what you know, what you understand, and you can somewhat control, as Warren Buffett says, that's a pretty wise investment. Being in a, you know, investing in the stock market, as far as control goes, if we pooled everybody's money on this call and everybody else that I know, we couldn't buy enough shares in a publicly traded company for us to get control or sit on the board of directors of that company. And so in the stock market, you're completely at the control of the stockholders of that company. And so, you know, we just really, I just think just sticking with real estate is the best way to go for us, being in the business. Hope that answers your question. I just never have done, I've never used our IRA. We fund our IRAs and stuff per year, but it's not something that, you know, that we used for our real estate investing.
That was helpful. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I have a quick question, actually. What would you say about someone using the equity in like the house that they live in to get started? Is that like an option, or would that not?
Absolutely. There's a lot of people that do that. And, you know, just the number one reason people fail in real estate investing is they're over leveraged in properties. And so, you know, you've got to be, when you're borrowing from yourself, so to speak, as you're going in there borrowing against the equity of your home to go do this deal, you just got to, you got to make sure that you're not over leveraged, and whether it's going to put your home, you know, that you're borrowing the money against that risk and stuff.
Sure.
And then you need to go make sure you find a good deal. And so it depends on really how much equity you do have in your home and stuff, and to go do it. But I know a lot of people that do that. If you found a really good deal, I would explore with your lenders about what it would take you to get a home equity loan to go take money out to buy another investment property. And I would check that out completely and get your numbers down. And then if I found a really good real estate deal, I'd jump on it in a minute.
Awesome. Thank
But
you.
it has to be a great deal. You know, you don't want to just go in there and you know, it's got to make sure that it cash flows and it works for you. Remember, the secret to building wealth is holding it over time. And so you want assets, you know, that you can, you know, I look at owning these real estate properties like a piggy bank. And I go out there and I invest 25 or 30% of my cash into buy this piggy bank. And then every time the tenant makes a payment every month on the rent, part of the money goes to pay for that piggy bank to the bank, and part of it goes to me as cash flow. And that's, you know, that's the money that I'm looking into. So I just look like, instead of just having a bunch of houses, I just got a bunch of piggy banks all over the place. And just makes it simple and easy for me.
Any other questions?
Go
You
get you
mentioned
some piggy
good
banks.
deals. I have a question. Are there specific metrics or, you know, that you identified to make a good deal versus this air quotes good deal?
You know, I don't really go in there and figure rate of returns on these things, on these residential properties and stuff. Now, if I was doing a lot, and I have a $5 million office building that I own, and I figure rate of returns on that, and you know, and it's a different type of investment than a residential home. And so I don't do that, but all I do is sit down there and I figure the real deal on these houses. So let's go in there and we're going to take a house that we purchased for $250,000. I'm going to put $50,000 down on it. And so my payment on that property, I'm going to finance $200,000 on it. I'm going to finance it for 15 or 30 years, depending on who you are and which way you want to go at it. And I know my taxes are going to be this much and my insurance is going to be this much. My payment is going to be this much. Will that property rent and give me a cash flow of at least $200 a month above that? That's basically my formula. And so it's not a question of, and if I was doing a 30-year note on that, I'd probably want about a $500 cash flow on that property.
I have a question outside of real estate. So other than real estate, what's the most fantastic thing you've purchased for yourself as a gift for all your success?
I just purchased something for me. I bought myself a Christmas present the other day. Back in whenever I was a kid, back in the mid 60s, I had a red Fireburst Rickenbacker 12-string guitar that was absolutely cool. And I found one for sale from a guitar company out in California, and I bought it last week for myself. So that was kind of fun. Yeah, we'll do it. Linda and I travel a lot, and we just did a huge trip with John Maxwell to Israel right before COVID hit. That was absolutely cool. We do jazz cruises with Dave Koz. We do just got back with Nikki and Gary Ubaldini, are some of our best friends. Our kids grew up together. We went to Bora Bora with them last year and stuff, and hung out with the little huts that were over the water with their own private pool and stuff. So, I mean, there's lots of fun stuff. I enjoy spending the money. I mean, I don't plan on taking it with me. So, but I end up also really liking things I like to support, and I like to give to organizations and to people that need it. And it's neat having the opportunity to do that. If we wouldn't have built our life the way we did back then, we wouldn't be able to do that today. And so building a big life is kind of cool.
Hey, Jimmy, great presentation. I have a question about the financial side.
Okay.
What percentage of your mortgages are fixed rate versus variable rate? And what percentages are government-backed loans versus private or commercial?
Well, here's the catch-22 there, Daniel, and I appreciate your question. That's a great question, by the way. Now you can get up to 10 Fannie Mae loans, but whenever you have as large a portfolio as I have, they count all of them against you on Fannie Mae's. And so originally back when we got started, we did our first, when they allowed 10, we went and got 10 of those loans as quick as we could. Those are fixed rate loans, and they're fixed at, for us, we're fixed at 15-year notes and stuff. And so once we got those, then we had to go to the local banks. Now the local banks will only do a 5-year fixed. They'll amortize them over 15 or 20 years, whichever one you choose. But the notes will become, you'll have to, your interest rate will only be fixed for 5. And then you'll have to adjust back to the market at the end of 5. It's weird as I've been doing those loans since the early 90s. And in this environment we've been in since 90s up through now, it's never been an issue. I can remember starting out when a lot of the interest rates were at 6%. And I thought, man, that's cheap money, 6%. I can remember a time when on an investment loan, when a local bank, the best you could get was 8.5 or 9. And I thought, boy, 6% is cheap. Today, I'm getting that money at 4.5% on that, fixed for 5 years. And you can also go through and you can put what's called a stopgap on those loans where they can't exceed a certain amount. Now, I don't, before, whenever I was a neophyte getting started, I didn't understand that, but now that I have so many properties and a lot of my properties are paid off now, we probably have debt on probably 40% of our properties. And I think, well, in fact, I was talking to my investment team this morning, my corporate staff, and I think the most we own a property is 40,000, and it's probably, and that's about a $270,000 or $80,000 property today. So in 3 years, everything that we have will be paid for as far as residential properties. Does that help?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yep.
Okay, but don't be afraid of those 5-year deals. Everybody gets freaked out. Oh, wonder if interest rates jump to 20%. Well, put your stopgap in there that says, I'd be willing to pay up to 6%, but other than that, and they would go for it in this environment. We're going to be in a low interest, in my opinion, a low interest environment for the next 10 years.
That's good news.
Yep.
Yeah, for all of us.
So what else? Did y'all learn anything?
Absolutely.
This was fun, guys. Enjoyed spending the time with you.
You know what, Jimmy,
Taylor, thank you for having me.
as usual, you did not disappoint, and learned things this time that either I forgot or didn't learn the first time I listened to you talk about this about 8 years ago.
The secret, guys, is just to, every plan's different, and so our plan, because I was 40 years old, was a different strategy than it would have been if I'd have been 25 years old in creating it. So you got to figure out what works for you. But the key things that you guys need to take out of this is, number one, if you wait till the bottom line to figure out how much money you do, you're probably not going to do this. So you need to figure out a means to where you can live off of about 80% of your income and take about 20% or 15% of it and use it to get appreciating assets. The other thing, if you're going to build it, to hold for long periods of time, it doesn't take that many. If you went in there and you bought 4 properties and you just paid them off over a 15-year note or whatever, by the time those properties, we hadn't even talked about appreciation. But guys, I've got homes that I bought in 2007 and 8 that I paid 90 or 120,000 for, with granite countertops and nice stuff right now. Those things are worth $320,000 right now. So some of those have tripled in value, not double, but tripled in value in a short period of time. Then I've got houses that I bought, in the mid 90s and stuff that were little, $65,000 houses that are worth $220,000 today, in this market. So, appreciation's the icing on the cake for the residential investor. And so holding it over time, if you look at the historical trend in real estate, it always goes up. It usually goes up for about 10 to 12 years. Then you're going to get a dip of about 20 to maybe 30%. And then it's going to go down, and then it's going to go up for another 10 or 12 years. And it's always going at an angle like this. And this is all the way back from the 1900s to present. And you will outpace any other investment, I think, over time by holding real estate. And the good news about real estate is you can see it, you can feel it, you can touch it, you can live in it if you have to. And so that's the reason these make great investments. And we're in a great industry, guys. And, you need to invest in what you're doing. I'd be out and teaching to groups of, 100 agents in an office. I remember in the mid 90s and stuff. And I'd say, how many guys are invested in real estate? And there'd maybe be 3 or 4 people raise their hands. Now I'm out in groups and I can have that same 100 people in a room and ask how many of you guys invest, and 40% of the room will raise their hand. And so people are catching on, and they're we should be investing in what we know and what we understand. We're in the business and we should build our wealth that way.
I have a question.
Okay.
So I've been listening to some advice for to do investments, and a lot of them say that it's best to have 20% down, and I couldn't understand why 20% down.
Well, I would say at least 20% down. I've always had 20 or 30% down on all of mine. And the reason why is because I want to have good cash flows, and I want that investment to be a great investment from the day I buy it. A lot of people will speculate and they'll buy a piece of property on what they think it'll do in the future. And that's a pretty weak strategy as far as I'm concerned. That's speculating. Real estate investing is really it's very finite, and it's, you can really, if you understand it, you can really base your rate of returns and know what you're going to get from the time you make the investment. So if I go in there and I invest 30,000 or 50,000 or 60,000 or whatever the number is down on a house, I pretty much know what my rate of return is, and I know what that investing that 60,000 is going to bring me. The key number I don't know is what it could appreciate to. I would have never assumed by buying those homes in 2007, 8, 9, and 10 that they would appreciate as much as they have in this market.
On the topic of appreciation, if you don't mind, do you find that long-term investments based on your expected appreciation are better for single-family homes versus multifamily homes?
Yes, by far. And the reason why is on a multifamily, I don't care what kind of apartment complex you buy, an A, B, or a C, or a D, and I'm talking about grade wise. D's are kind of, the ones that they're older, typically units. They don't have individual metered units and stuff. They're the older units and stuff. But everything you do with multifamily the value is going to be based on how much you receive in the rents and what's your NOI, what's your net operating income. Everything's based on. With real estate, like I said, on the properties that we bought good enough and held good enough properties that whenever we decide to sell those, I'm going to sell them to a buyer you would bring to me. I'm going to sell them to a retail buyer out in the marketplace. I'm not going to, my properties are good enough so I'm going to get maximum money from them, from a retail buyer versus me having to sell them to another investor. And again, it's been a big flipper as you are, what you're doing and stuff right now. I just think on your situation, if you could pool that or roll that money, and if you're going to make $20,000 or $30,000 on a flip, know what you're going to do with that money ahead of time. Otherwise, it just gets bottled back up and gets spent and consumed. So if you came up with a number to where you're going to take X amount of dollars off of your flips and put it into a separate account that you're not going to touch, and then you're only going to buy whole properties to build wealth on this side instead of cash flow on the flips, that would be a great strategy for you. Most people don't have the talent to do what you do.
I appreciate that. That's great advice. Thank you.
Okay. That just might be something you think about.
All right. Any others before we let Jim get back to buying more cabins?
Really enjoyed spending the time with you guys today.
Thank you.
Awesome group. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Jim,
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
If I can help you guys, I'm only a phone call away, okay?
Thank you.
All righty.
For those of you still on here, Megan's class is going to start as soon as we're done with this. So she held off doing it because of the Zoom account. So if you are planning to get on the commissions class on how to do your transactions and